You are listening to the Women in Youth Ministry podcast hosted by me, your CEO, Heather Lea Campbell. Women in Youth Ministry is an organization that seeks to elevate the voices of women in a male-saturated field. Go to womeninyouthministry.com to read our blog, follow us on social media, join our online community, purchase our merch, or support our Patreon. Now, here is Heather and this week's guest. Well, friends, it has been 2 years since our last podcast, and so much has happened in just 2 years, and I wanted to take a minute to talk about it before we release this next season. Typically, we take a break at the end of a podcast season for a few months, and that particular season lined up perfectly with the Women in Youth Ministry Conference. And when we're in those last few months of conference happening, planning stuff, it just makes no sense to also try to be filming a podcast. So we were going to take off that break regardless, right? But then there was just a bunch of stuff that happened in my life in 2024. And I am going to talk about it on the next episode quite a bit. But I wanted to just take a moment to just name it for you all, that the last few years have been challenging and they've been different, and I'm not trying to hide it. In fact, I wanted to kick off this season sharing my talk with you all from the last Women in Youth Ministry Conference. Typically, as we are advertising next year's conference, I pop in my keynote from last year just to kind of give you guys a taste of what you're in for at the conference. But as I was watching over the keynote, I realized there's some glaring differences between where I was in March of 2024 and where I am now in September of 2025. Namely, that in March of 2024, I was married. I had a different name. I also was 100 pounds heavier, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but as I look at pictures of myself, I remember what I was feeling in my body at that time, as I had just undergone a surgery to fix something in my reproductive system and had just met a doctor who finally believed me that there was something wrong with me. And that next 18 months of my life since March have been transformative, to say the least. And there have been a ton of changes for the better and also hard. So I'm excited to talk about that in the next episode. But I just wanted to name that because as I share this episode of my keynote, I just recognize I don't look the same. I don't feel the same. But dang, the message is the same. It's still the same. And I hope that you all find it encouraging as I talk about in this episode why I believe that women are uniquely called and shaped to lead the future of youth ministry. I mentioned this season, it's going to be different. Every season typically has kind of a theme, sometimes, I guess. And this particular season, I am interviewing my newly developed Women in Youth Ministry team. So for several years, it's been a team of me and a few people I've taken on here or there who have offered to help. And we've just grown. We've grown so much. We are no longer that same little Facebook group of 500 people. We are a Facebook community of 6,000 people, and I need a lot of help in order to make that happen. And I talk a little bit about this in the episode where I am interviewed. But someone pointed out to me that some of the pieces of our core identity were slipping through the cracks, that we were not as inclusive and diverse as we had hoped we would be, and that we needed to expand our team in order to live into our values. And so that is what I did. So we now have a newly developed Women in Youth Ministry board, which is very exciting. It's now official and formal, whereas before it was a little informal. It was just like an active group chat. And we also have an expanded moderator team of over 12 women. This is twice as large as it was before, and there's room to still expand. So that's exciting. So my goal is to interview every single one of my board members and my moderator members and my conference team so that you can all get a chance to know who are the women behind Women of Youth Ministry. So my friend Kat and I decided that the first episode of the season should be interviewing me, and it's a longer episode for sure. But before we start releasing those interviews, again, I just wanted to share with you all that conference keynote from the last conference. And I really do hope that you all will join me at the next conference. It's March 4th through 6th in Arlington, Texas, and it is at our friend Lonnie's church, and it's going to be a blast. If you want more details on the conference, go to womeninyouthministry.com/conference. Okay, I've talked long enough, but I had to address the elephant in the room, and that's okay. Here's what I'll say about this 2024 Heather. Oh, we look different, but she was strong and she was brave and she was crushing it. And I'm so proud of her. And so even as I look at this video and go, whoa, was life different? I can really say, I'm still that girl. I just have a lot more joy in my life. And I'm happy to share more about it with you in the next episode.
We're getting ready to hear from, I always call her the she-hero. She is Miss Heather Lea Campbell. Her first love is youth ministry. Her second love is youth ministers. And after serving in various churches for the last 13 years, she serves currently with the Episcopal Diocese of Indianapolis as the Diocesan Youth Minister, restoring youth and their youth leaders. And of course, she is the founder and the CEO of Women in Youth Ministry, and she's on the board for Progressive Youth Ministry. She's also a certified coach. Heather is ingenious. She is brilliant. She is magnificent. She is a leader. She is a servant. She is a pastor. She is so many things, and they are all good. Yeah. And so will you put your hands together for the Heather Lea Campbell.
You can go ahead and hit that first video as you guys get seated.
Let's talk about the year of the girl. Michelle Yeoh became the first Asian woman to win an Oscar for Best Lead Actress. Beyoncé set the record for most Grammy wins, and her Renaissance tour grossed $579 million worldwide. Alessandra Karat Mandaruku won the Goldman Environmental Prize for South and Central America. Viola Davis achieved EGOT status. Barbie became the highest-grossing film, and Greta Gerwig became the first woman with a sole director credit to gross over $1 billion. Taylor Swift broke countless records, including having the highest-grossing concert tour ever. Ava DuVernay became the first Black woman to have a film compete at the Venice Film Festival. Claudia Goldwyn became the first woman to independently win a Nobel Prize in Economics. Missy Elliott made history as the first female rapper inducted to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Laura Alber became the longest-serving female CEO in the Fortune 500. Women's sports broke revenue and attendance records around the globe. Women ran all major U.S. news networks. Can't wait to see what's in store for next year.
All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? 2023 was the year of women. It was so great. It was such a joy to watch, wasn't it? I don't know about you, but I needed last year. I really, really needed last year. Growing up as a young girl, I heard mixed messages on womanhood in the church. I heard that women should be submissive, quiet. But then I read stories in the Bible where women were leading. They just weren't the ones talked about from the pulpit. I heard that I should dress modestly, as to not tempt my brothers in Christ. But then male leaders would get caught grooming girls and women in the church. I heard that sex was a gift and that babies were a blessing. But when our pastor's daughter got pregnant, she was pulled in front of the entire congregation to confess that she got pregnant while a grown adult out of wedlock. I heard that women should serve their church, But the ways that I was gifted to serve did not align with the way that women were allowed to in my church. I'm grateful to serve in spaces now where the young girls that I work with and disciple don't hear the same messages. Because y'all, these messages messed me up. When I felt a call to ministry as a junior in high school, I truly did not understand how God could call me, a woman, to ministry. I followed God's call anyway, and I went to college my college within a conservative denomination. I like to joke that I was the only woman who wanted to be a pastor and not marry one, but it's not a joke. It was true. I was not there to get my MRS degree. If you know, you know. And everyone knew it. I had no time for flirting with trifling boys. I worked harder than all of my male classmates. I got my first youth ministry position at the age of 20 because I needed to put something on my resume before I graduated college in order to get a job. Now, while the boys were creating a boys' club at school, I was working my butt off in the local church. I remember one day, this story is so obnoxious, but it just tells you who I am. I remember one day I'm in a youth ministry class, and the boys are just goofing off. They're being dumb. And I remember getting really frustrated, and I broke, and I snapped at them. And I said, you guys need to pay attention, because you all think youth ministry is a joke, but when you get out there and see it in real life, you're going to realize you just wasted all your time right here. And everyone looked at me and was like, what is wrong with this girl? A lot. I was 20 and a youth pastor. So even though I started up in my college, the Baptist Association for Christian Educators, I could not be the president. I could not be the vice president. I had to be the secretary. So I sat to the side. I got so sick and tired that I made my own organization for women in my ministry department, hoping that just one woman, someone else besides me, would want to use their ministry degree. Here's the kicker. Just a few years after I graduated from college, there was a petition that circulated around demanding the removal of a few professors from my college. On the list of items, allowing women to get ministry degrees. And on that petition were a bunch of names of guys who were in my study groups. So I reached out to my friend Thomas, and as you can imagine, I'm a little intense when I'm mad. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I always have to say it. And I'm like, yo, Thomas. Hit him up through Facebook Messenger. Why is your name on this petition? We were in the same study group. And he goes, I thought you knew women couldn't do ministry. I was like, cool. So I was good enough for you to copy your notes off of, but not good enough to be a pastor. Got it. I mean, I still feel like screaming sometimes about it, but this kind of stuff happens all the time to women in ministry, especially those of us who still lead in those spaces. And if you're that girl, drinks on me later, well, you probably can't drink, so just go grab another cup of coffee. You deserve it. It reminds me of America Ferrera's speech from Barbie, which, let's go ahead and listen to that. I know you've heard it, but...
It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. We have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. you have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard. It's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll, just representing a woman, then I don't even know.
So let's add some for women in ministry. You have to dress well, but you can't be a distraction. You should have kids so you can relate to families, but you also have to be available nights and weekends. You should succeed, but you can't outshine the men who supervise you. You have to be cool to the young people, but not too trendy, because they also have to respect you. You have to be young enough to relate to teenagers, but also not too old or it's creepy. You have to accept a part-time wage, but on full-time hours. Y'all know it. You have to be married, but you can't date to get married. You can't have a dating life. And you can't be sexually promiscuous, but you do need to go out with every granny's grandson in your church. Don't I know it? I'm just curious which others you would add, because it feels like this tension is so prevalent in our careers. The thing is it's typical for women in general to feel pulled in all kinds of directions. It's how we're socialized in our culture to always feel caught between two extremes that we can never fully satisfy. To always feel challenged in our abilities to show up completely and confidently and competently. Deborah knew the challenges of leading as a woman. She saw the restraint that men magically had in a tough situation, and she arose to the challenge. She got her hands dirty when no one else would. I love this story. The Bible names that Deborah is a prophet, a judge, and a leader in Israel. It's time to have a battle, so she sends for a man named Barak to grab the army and go seize the enemy. Barak strikes me as a super insecure guy. He says, I'll go if you go with me, but if you're not going, then I'm not going. It's so annoying. It feels like men. Deborah said, I'll go with you, but because you're so insecure, this battle won't be won by you, but it'll be won by a woman. And I'm sure that this really grinded Barak's gears. So Deborah guides him to where the battle is. She walks him there. And then when it's time for them to strike, she basically has to push him out there. Now, he does succeed in seizing the enemy. However, he loses their leader, Sisera. This is where Sisera, let's get some pictures going. Move on. Oh, yep, okay. This is where Sisera encounters my favorite woman in the Bible, my girl, JL. Love JL. JL kills Sisera, fulfilling Deborah's promise that a woman would get the victory for Barak's battle. I wish that I could look at Barak's face and see the look when he realizes he shows up to her tent ready to get his guy, and he sees a woman took care of him. Like, so juicy. I might sound really petty for this, to be so excited that Barak finally got his, but pettiness isn't a sin, or we wouldn't have half the Psalms. So Deborah sings a song about how her troops held her back, and it says, villagers in Israel would not fight. They held back until I, Deborah, arose. Until I arose, a mother in Israel. Here's what's fascinating to me. The Bible says that Deborah doesn't sing this alone. Barak sings this with her. So I wonder how it felt for Barak to sing about how he did not have the guts to do what it takes, and a woman had to do it for him. Like, I'm sorry, but I've screamed "The Man" by Taylor Swift in my car so many times that this moment really makes up for some things. I need this story, and my guess is that you do too. We need this story because there's narratives all around us that make us question our call. We wonder if we have what it takes to do the work. And even if you do not have a history of patriarchal theology or culture, it's still relevant, it's still prevalent in the culture because the society has socialized us in this way as women. It's so sad that many of us need this reminder that we're called to this work, but we do. In fact, the reason we're calling this conference Called this year is because at the end of every podcast episode, we ask our guests, what do women need to hear right now? And 9 times out of 10, without fail, our guests say, I want you to know you're called. Why is that? You see, Deborah is a woman of strength and valor. She emerged in a time of turmoil and uncertainty. She defied societal norms and she stepped into the role of leader, not only as a judge, but as a beacon of hope for her people. The significance of Deborah's leadership cannot be overstated. In a patriarchal society where women were often relegated to the sidelines, Deborah shattered barriers and demonstrated that gender should never be a barrier to fulfilling one's calling and purpose. She showed us that leadership knows no bounds, that the gifts and talents bestowed upon us by the divine are not limited by gender, but are empowered by God who created us in her image. As women called to serve in this sacred realm of ministry with young people, we are entrusted with a profound responsibility: the nurturing of young minds, the nurturing young hearts, the shaping of young minds, and the guiding of young souls towards hope. Yet in fulfilling this calling, we are not merely called to be bystanders or facilitators or less than. Rather, we're called to be leaders, bold, visionary, and unwavering in our commitment to young people. In fact, I believe that women are uniquely positioned to lead youth ministry into a new future. We aren't afraid to challenge norms or get our hands dirty or face topics that have long been ignored. Because of the ways that we have been socialized, we do tend to hold the following traits that are needed in ministry. The first one being emotional intelligence, social equity, empathy, discernment, empathy for gray areas. We tend to err on the side of inclusion. This one is me, mama bear energy. We are willing to try new things and pioneer. I'd even go as far to say that many of our brothers in ministry are holding back from embracing the future of youth ministry, much like Barak and the troops in this story. We've ignored the data that tells us that something about youth ministry is broken. And when COVID made this really clear to us, many youth workers shrugged their shoulders and went right back to the way things were, to these old models of ministry that included this emphasis on games, superficial messages, and a one-size-fits-all atmosphere. But the ministry of the future needs your gifts. And I believe that women can uniquely change the future of youth ministry so that all genders can work together to disciple teenagers. That's all we're asking for, really. So let's take a look at some of the ministry with young people of yesterday and where we feel it's going. Ministry with young people of yesterday, the roles were very siloed. So you would be a youth minister only. But how many people in this room have more than one job? You're youth and kids, or and worship, or and college, right? Over half. That's the future. The youth ministry of yesterday is where everything's broken out into age groups, but the future is intergenerational. Yesterday was youth pastors the center, they're the star. But the future is that that youth are the center, that they are driving the program, that they're the star. Yesterday it was sermon-based learning, but the future is experience-based learning. Yesterday you had to conform with a group, but now we need to meet kids where they're at. Yesterday it was segregated and cliquish. The future, inclusive and diverse. The past, the youth pastor holds the relationships and the influence. The future, the volunteers hold the relationship and the influence. The past, we'd say, youth are the future. But we've said this for a long time, youth are the now. We used to say, well, church should be the spiritual hub. But now we're moving into church is the community hub. It used to be that church are doing service projects at church, but now youth are leading their church. We got some more. You used to see that youth service was physical labor. How many of you get calls about going to go rake some granny's leaves in your church? That's not how service should look. Service is spiritual and relationship leadership, which teenagers can handle. Yesterday, youth looked to their leaders as superstars, like they get stars in their eyes. The youth leaders untouchable. But the future, our youth leaders are nurturers. We used to say, make it fun and they will come. And now we're saying, give them a way to lead and they will come. Kids aren't coming to church unless they have a role. We used to have relationships with our youth only. We used to talk about, I hate parents, are the worst part of the ministry. But parents should be the best part of your ministry. I would even argue that your relationship should first be with parents. We used to have this very daycare mentality about church, babysitting. It was very transactional. And the future is that youth ministry is serious and that kids and youth can have real tough conversations. We used to say, well, the church is about the Bible. We only talk about the Bible. But now we're saying, no, the Bible intersects with real life, so we talk about real life here. It used to be that we flew by the seat of our pants. It's youth ministry after all. But now we got policies and safeguards thanks to women. It used to be that church is the center of programs, but now we're asking people to leave the church, or we're asking leaders, like we have to leave the church and meet kids where they are. So it's not we're drawing them to our church, but we are going to them. And then last, it used to be that we would have a good gimmick. I had a boss who every time we had an event planning, she's like, can we get a magician? And by used to, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. But you know what's attractional? Good communication. When you look at the future of where youth ministry is going, I believe that women hold the key. Many of these old youth ministry patterns of old come from old, white, patriarchal norms. Women bring a different perspective to youth ministry. That while it may not be a new idea to us in this room, it is needed in the landscape of youth ministry more broadly. Sisters, please hear this clearly. Just as Deborah rose when others were holding back, it is time for us to rise up. I'm not saying that it will be easy. We are in a field where over half of youth workers are female, but the content we take in from books and podcasts and yes, conference speakers are oversaturated with male voices. We have to put ourselves out there because we have something worthy to bring. This is why we at Women in Youth Ministry have a blog, we have a podcast, we have a conference, so we can hear from fellow women and put out resources so that men can listen to us too. We have such a huge fan base from men in ministry. We had men helping us set up yesterday, actually. And I want you to look around at all these exhibit tables because I don't think you're going to find many other conferences our size who have this many people who financially invest in us. And it would not be possible without their support because it's crazy to charge like $100 for a conference. It's so nuts. But we do it because people believe in our gifts and what we bring, and they want to be in this space with us. Now, I know that many of us are facing challenges back home. I know that many of us are dealing with real life stuff, We faced some hard things this last year together. And I also know that many of us are struggling in our workplaces, wondering if our voices and our contributions really matter. We find ourselves shrinking, growing quieter, when God has called us to take up space and to use our gifts. I promise you, friends, that the same God that called Deborah to leadership calls us as well. We have been chosen for this exact moment to fulfill our sacred calling. As women in ministry, let us rise up with courage and conviction, knowing that our voices are not only valid but essential to the flourishing of young souls entrusted to our care. Let us commit to creating spaces where the voices and experiences of women are celebrated and affirmed. Let us embody the spirit and leadership of Deborah, leading with unwavering faith. In the name of the one who calls and equips us for this exact moment in time, may we be catalysts for change, embracing our divine calling with confidence. Amen.
If you enjoyed that podcast, don't forget to rate us 5 stars. You can follow us on Meta, Twitter, and TikTok at Women in WYM. If you're a woman, we'd love to have you as part of our Facebook community. Go to womeninyouthministry.com to learn more. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Women in Youth Ministry podcast.